Get some instant analysis. Welcome in CBS Sports combat writer Shakiel Mahjouri. Volkanovski takes back the belt, beating Diego Lopez via unanimous decision to earn the Featherweight championship. Shaq, what's your reaction to how that fight played out? Because at times we saw Volk being absolutely great.
Yeah, well, first of all, you can't help but just sort of celebrate the achievement. Volkanovski comes off as just one of the sort of sweetest, most lovable characters that we have in a sport that, you know, brings out some less than ideal personalities from time to time. And he went through so much to get here, right? He's coming off of 2 consecutive knockout losses, first to Islam Makhachev at lightweight, a fight he took on 10 days notice. 4 months later, he fights Ilia Topuria, loses his featherweight title by knockout. And a lot of people were insisting that Volkanovski should have taken more time off before the Topuria fight. In my opinion, he was a little strong-headed about it. And normally in a space where like the fans can really harp on the fighters, I think people just wanted Volk to take the time that was in his best interest. He takes 14 months off. He comes back tonight, wins his 2nd featherweight title. And in doing so, he is the first ever fighter over the age of 35 male to win a UFC title 155 pounds or lighter. It's been attempted a couple dozen times. It's never happened. He's also the first ever fighter to win a UFC belt coming off of 2 consecutive losses. If that isn't a story worth celebrating, I don't know what is.
Yeah, fighters 35 and older had been 0-17 all-time in UFC title fights at 155 pounds and lighter. Now 1-17, Shaq. So what's next for Volk?
The featherweight division is in a bit of a weird predicament right now. If you're looking at who the most sort of deserving contender is based on their winning streak and their status in the rankings, it's probably Movsar Evloev. But that's not a fight that's going to push tickets. Movsar already said that he might have a fight lined up for sometime in May. Yair Rodriguez claimed that he was told by the matchmakers that a win would earn him a title shot. It makes sense with the UFC going to Guadalajara, Mexico for Noche UFC this year. But I'm having a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around that fight because Yair, much like Volkanovski, was coming off of 2 losses. One of those losses was to Alexander Volkanovski. So I don't see how great of a chance Yair has. Max Holloway has now moved up to lightweight. Volkanovski coming back has actually kind of put the division back where it was in the sense that you have a bunch of guys that Volkanovski has beat or probably will beat or aren't quite ready yet. I guess we can do the Yair fight for now. Hopefully by then, the guys like John Silva make their way further up the division.
Diego Lopez competing in his first title fight. Shaq, what's your takeaway from his performance in this one?
You know, I got to commend him. It was what I sort of expected. What's great about Diego and what's allowed him to go from debutante to title challenger in less than 2 years is he's this dual knockout and submission threat. He can finish you just about everywhere. But where I had doubts that were sort of validated tonight were the quality of his skill set in between, the wrestling, the angles, the feints. He can get the finish, but I didn't think he could keep up with Volk's finesse and wealth of experience. So he's going to need to learn how to fill the gaps a little bit when he can't overwhelm an opponent with pressure and power. We did see him knock down Volk at the end of that 2nd round, hurt him again in round 4 as well. So Diego Lopez is a legitimate top 5 guy. If Yair doesn't have the title fight, those 2 guys have beef. They were going back and forth to the presser. I think Diego versus Yair would be a really great fight and a lot of sort of turmoil that you can use to sell it.
Perhaps a star in the making in the co-main event. Paddy Pimblett, already been a star, maybe becoming a superstar, puts on a clinic against Michael Chandler. 3rd round stoppages. Paddy the Baddy improves to a perfect 7-0 in the UFC. Shaq, that 2nd round was brilliant, and then the huge knee to start round 3 was just incredible.
I apologized to Paddy Pimblett during our pre-fight interview because I always pick against him. I told him I was wrong. I told him I learned my lesson, and then I picked against him again this fight. I'm done doubting the man. This was the most dominant that we've ever seen someone against Michael Chandler. It does make you question a few things. 1, Michael Chandler had taken a lot of damage up until this point. 2, it feels like he sort of spent the last of his prime years waiting for that Conor McGregor fight that never materialized over the course of 2 years. But there's no doubting Paddy at this point. For a long time, it felt like his hype was here and his skill set was here, and we're finally seeing it level out. He's making smarter decisions. He's executing a dynamic game plan on the feet. He's got great knockout power, and he's an absolute mauler on the ground. I think it's time to strap the jetpack to this guy. You can put him against any of those 4 top lightweights he mentioned, but I think you could even, depending on what Makhachev is doing, book him against Ilia Topuria in a title eliminator, because those guys have legitimate beef. They got into a confrontation at a hotel, I think, in the UK in 2022, and the fight never made sense. They were in different weight classes. Ilia's rise through the rankings happened much quicker than Paddy's, but now we're suddenly in this point where they're both, in a sense, top 5, top 10 lightweights. There's a lot of risk associated with either of them losing a fight before they meet each other. I say pull the trigger now. Book a title eliminator. That could easily headline a pay-per-view with no belt on it.
Paddy the Baddy has won 5 of his 7 UFC fights via stoppage. Excited to see what's next for Paddy Pimblett. Also on the main card, one of the greatest fighters in Bellator history, making his UFC debut, former 2-division champ Patricio Pitbull facing Yair Rodriguez in a featherweight bout. And Rodriguez with ground and pound wins via unanimous decision. Shaq, what did you see from Pitbull in his UFC debut?
Unfortunately, a little muted. Definitely a slow start. You have to wonder if part of that is he's so used to 5-round fights at this point. I also think stylistically this was very difficult for him. He's a short, stocky featherweight fighter. Yair Rodriguez is so long, has so much range. But more than anything, I think it's just a little bit too late in his career to make this switch over. He's 37 years old. He's now 2 fights removed from a career-altering back surgery. He had 2 herniated discs in his back. He couldn't even sleep laying down. He had to sit in a small chair that was meant for his child just to get some rest at night. And although he's doing much better post-surgery, I just think this transition came a little bit late in his career. I do think you give him another chance against a top 15 opponent, but I think you do someone like Dan Ige, who's kind of an elite gatekeeper at this point. He's coming off of a win on the prelims against Sean Woodson, 2 stocky featherweights with serious knockout power. I think that might be a good assessment of where Patricio might fall among the top 5 to top 10 of this division.
CBS Sports combat writer Shakiel Mahjouri recapping UFC 314 here on CBS Sports HQ. Shaq, thank you.
Thank you.
And here's what's coming up. UFC 315 from Montreal. Bilal Muhammad putting his UFC welterweight championship on the line against Jack Della Maddalena. Another title fight on the card. Valentina Shevchenko looking to defend her flyweight championship. Manon Fior. Gilbert Burns was scheduled to take on the undefeated 25-year-old Michael Morales, but that fight has been rescheduled to a main event at the UFC Apex on May 17th. UFC 315 coming your way on May 10th.